Yes. The day before has finally arrived, and this is honestly a day I did not think we would see, and it has not gone well for the game, the player base, or FNTASTIC, the outfit that developed it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and I remember posting this video way back in February of this year, where I had found an article citing current sources from within the studio who were trying to warn us to not buy this game. Well, it turns out they were right. In case you haven't done so already, please take a moment to hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are greatly appreciated. By the way, I have an entire playlist dedicated to the day before, link in the video description, and let's check out the game the day before. First off, I wanted to have this video go live yesterday, but as you can hear from my voice, I'm still very sick, and there was no way I could have made it happen in that short amount of time, especially feeling the way I do. But here it is, as they say, better late than never. Alright, first things first. It's actually a real game. Well, sort of. I didn't think this day would ever arrive. I fully expected another last-minute delay just before yesterday's launch, but FNTASTIC did it. They got the day before over the finish line. In the current state that the game is, I almost wished they didn't. But yeah, that was a big surprise. There was a point where I refreshed my Steam browser and the game changed status from releasing December 7th to be announced. And I was like, FML. But it then refreshed again and I could purchase it, and so it began. And we might as well start off with the elephant in the room. How this game was advertised to what was then delivered. Now, over the past 2 years, it was this genre-defining open-world zombie survival MMO, and we heard this repeated by the studio over and over again. Hell, even their Steam page still shows it as a uniquely reimagined journey into post-apocalyptic open-world MMO survival. This is, and was, a lie. Whatever FNTASTIC wanted us to believe, the day before is an extraction shooter. Think Escape from Tarkov, but a very light version of that game, more arcadey and with a ton of technical issues. Now, maybe somewhere in the early days of the work on this game, it was that style of game, so a survival MMO with zombies that it still professes to be, but what it is now, in actuality, is completely different. They have words for that, by the way, like scam, bait and switch, fake, deceit, deception, fraud, and sham. And this is probably why they never showed us actual live gameplay. Why they wouldn't let anyone outside of the studio volunteers beta test the game. Why they sent out early access keys, but not to play the game early and post impressions. And why, even after allegedly winning back the name the day before through their trademark litigation, why they haven't reposted all of their old day before trailers, because those trailers show an entirely different game than what they have now released. The game itself is a mess of half-baked, never-tested mechanics that the dev team was probably like, fuck it, and just slammed it into the game. After this incomplete character creator screen, I had to select a server, which took forever, because even when you select a server that is seemingly not maxed out, you were just constantly hit with this internet connection error. I was lucky in that it took me only about 15 minutes to finally drop into a server, but I've heard about players that it took upwards of an hour, and in the state and stability that I saw it yesterday, I would think that most players just couldn't log in at all. After that, I was hit with an issue trying to leave Dr. Leonard's office because the interact key would not open the door, but I eventually made it into Woodbury and started to see what the day before had in store for us. There's honestly not a whole hell of a lot going on here. I went and visited all the vendors that it requires for this tutorial section. I went to the ranch and built a tent and placed some furniture. I actually ran out into the lake, for science, which by the way has an invisible barrier a little bit offshore. And I guess the dev team forgot to install the realistic water effects mod here. Who knows? But after all this, I went back to Woodbury and ventured out into New Fortune City, and damn, this was a big old mess. I have to say that I think the graphics here are okay. Nothing next gen, and certainly nothing like we saw from many of the early trailers, but I guess they do the job. I went into the settings and bumped up the resolution to 4K, which did not do much for the image quality, and it wreaked havoc on my setups. I also enabled all the NVIDIA options and pushed everything up to FNTASTIC settings, and my 4090 GPU seemed up to the task. And so, with all of that out of the way and removed from those Woodbury tutorials, you find that the game just immediately falls apart. The survival elements are a joke, with basically the only ask that we as players down some liquids and eat a bit of food every now and then. So, that's basically out. Then we get to the zombies, infected, whatever the hell you want to call them, and I don't even know where to start with this aspect. There's no real threat here. They're brain dead. They have pathing issues. There are no zombie hordes. There is no here is what I'm trying to say. They serve as cannon fodder to waste some ammo on. At most, I had to deal with 3 zombies at once. I think I was in a bank, including this one that was wearing full body armor. And here's where you get just a little taste of how busted this game is, because early on, I just blow this zombie's helmet off, and I just keep dropping rounds into his dome. And at one point, he kind of falls into this down state, and I think, I got him. I drop even more ammo into him, and he just keeps coming. I mean, I don't know if it was lag. Was this intended to work like this? Is his flesh also bulletproof? I mean, who the hell knows? But the whole thing just seemed way janky. And janky is probably a great word we could use to describe the overall core gameplay mechanics on display here, because as far as I can tell, the server size is somewhere around 30-ish players. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, my math here was very basic. I essentially just stood in my server's Woodbury safe house and counted players as they ran by, quickly scribbling down their gamer tags, which, by the way, you cannot see in the open world, and there is no VoIP, so you don't know who you're shooting at. Anyways, the gameplay loop is built on accepting search and loot tasks for the Woodbury NPCs, and it never strays from this. It's always, hey, I need you to go find this, return to me, I'll give you some coin. And so, after accepting these, we're sent out into the open world to what? Do combat with the exact same Woodbury players we were just mingling with in the safe areas. And then we return to Woodbury, complete the task, collect the reward money, after which we all just kind of hang out again and we're all friends again. It's like, what? There are no factions. There's not a series of safe houses where competing players can spawn from. We all step out of Woodbury, beat each other's asses to a pulp, and then we meet back at Woodbury to do it all over again. Seriously, who thought this was a compelling gameplay loop? And since the zombies are no real threat, you're basically left wandering around this lifeless, open world, constantly pressing F so you can search for loot whenever you're met with a prompt. And so you quickly find out that farming players is the most efficient way to get anywhere. And here's where there's a major issue with the day before, because as someone that uses audio to track down potential threats and or PvP, this game is a fucking mess. You see, as soon as you step outside of Woodbury, your ears are assaulted with all these alarms going off everywhere and gunfire. Shots fired left, shots fired right, up, down. I mean, it's coming from everywhere. But when you go to the location of those shots, there's nobody there. The game is actually programmed to use gunshots as ambient sound. I have the same issues with alarms, which go off everywhere in the open world. The shrieking alarm sound just follows you. You can't escape them, and furthermore, you would think that they would attract the zombies to your location, but they don't. So we've got gunshots used as background noises and alarms which do nothing but punish your eardrums for minutes at a time. So we've got a lifeless city, most buildings you can't enter, we've got brain dead zombies, no vehicles like we saw in the trailers, no survival elements to speak of, and so the entire game is basically a series of fetch quests bolted onto the Hunger Games as we are sent out to slaughter each other in a battle royale. Now, if you like the sound of that, then cool. Me personally, I was looking for something a little bit different, especially after all that false advertising and even the game's description, which is still plastered up on Steam. Again, I don't have a problem with it being an extraction shooter. I do like that style of game as well, but not from a game that has constantly built itself in the past as a genre-defining MMO open-world survival game that has actually now turned out to be a very cheap knockoff of Tarkov. Which brings us to how the game has been received, and as expected, it's been a shit show. As of the posting of this video, the day before has just over 11,500 reviews and is currently sitting at overwhelmingly negative, with just 15% of all reviews being positive. Yesterday, the official day before Discord was on full lockdown. Nobody could join, nobody could post, just a complete lockdown. Now, it's since been opened back up again, but reality has set in. The game is a mess. Steam is ablaze, and the only thing we have to watch for now is FNTASTIC's response to all of this. They've been really quick to post these odd pushbacks in the past, calling out injustice, vowing to fight the good fight, but the reality is that the game they've been pushing for the past 2 years has just fallen flat on its face, which, let's be honest here, based on all the past warning signs, we knew would happen, but how did they respond? 6 to 8 months of early access seems like a pipe dream to me. This game needs 6 to 8 more years before it will be something to consider. Plus, they are currently charging $40 for this thing, which it's not worth, and they have plans to push it up to $50 when it leaves early access. Which, to be honest, I don't ever see happening. This studio has made so many boneheaded decisions and misleading statements in the past, killing any goodwill towards the team. And they had this one chance to prove to the world that the day before was legit and genre-defining, and they blew it. I don't know where they go from here. Abandon the game? Sell it off? Which is bad news for anyone out there on console who was looking forward to playing the game, which at this point, I can't see ever happening. To be clear, FNTASTIC has placed themselves squarely in the center of the bullseye for this catastrophe, with the misleading trailers, the half-cocked statements, the last-minute delays, and the deceptive marketing. And so, I would say with all of this public backlash, the negative reviews, the anger at being lied to, their Discord exploding with pushback, now even getting reader-added context to their Steam page listing, they are getting exactly what they deserve. But that's all in a day's work for FNTASTIC, especially when, after all of this drama, they just walked off with millions of bucks. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are greatly appreciated. All my socials can be found in the video description. Shout out to the now over 183,000 of you that have stuck with me and hit subscribe. And a special thanks goes out to my Patreon supporters. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.